Attention, ladies and gentlemen, the Planet Green Trees show is underway with your host, attorney Michael Komorn.
Jim, by the way, thanks for hanging in there. I know in the past when we talk too much lawyerly stuff, sometimes it gets boring to some. Sorry.
Our viewer count dropped significantly.
This is an important topic, though. It's a scandal amongst scandals. If you're listening to what happened, Neil explained how they're lying. They know about it. They investigated themselves to bury the truth.
Yeah.
It's much more far-reaching. It impacts many, many more cases.
It's really important.
And whatever they're representing this entire program to be is a farce at the end of the day. And they don't care, and they're just going to lie, cheat, and they have 4 different layers of data that they review to produce one that's the product that they give to the public.
Yeah, the master deliverable.
They charge Iron Labs $250,000 for doing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
I mean, there's a lot of problems
like doctoring data, right? You know what I'm saying?
It can't be science if it's not calibrated. The rule for 120 days is there for a reason, and you can't go back and certify a device retroactively. That's not how that works. And to think that some printout from the machine is going to justify the fact that the calibration and checks were not completed is preposterous, unacceptable.
Did I hear him right that the judges were frowning upon them fighting the cases over this?
Well, yeah.
Did I hear that correctly?
Yes. I mean, I think that you had a lot of folks that,
Oh, no, they wouldn't give the discovery. You know, they were the FOIA request or whatever. They were charged a lot of money. Finally, a judge decided to order them to present it. I have a headache. Let's go. Come on, I'm so hungry.
It's
It's late.
Okay. Well,
hey, you guys, tune in next
Jamie, any
week.
final commentary? Look, he's out getting stuff done, like I said. That's what he does. Yeah. What's up?
All good. Good show. Interesting. Appreciate it.
We're going to get the finish of the marijuana stuff, but we'll have to circle back.
You have a new one now. You have a mask for every, every hour of the day.
Yeah.
Oh, also, lastly, Monday night, Freedom Hill, come join Jimmy the Pepper and I to fundraiser for Pete Lucido, running for prosecutor, Macomb County. Jim and I like him. We're going to go out and support him on Monday. It's actually a marijuana-themed fundraising event. He was telling me a lot of people from the marijuana community putting this on at Freedom Hill Monday night from 5 p.m. to 7:30. Yes, sir. So a lot of marijuana people are there. It's a marijuana-themed fundraising event on the Republican side.
And we know that Pete has, been a big supporter of forfeiture reform, and it was also under his committee that the expungement bills were reported out to the Senate, which just passed this week. So I think that people should really take a look at him as the next potential prosecutor of Macomb County.
Absolutely. I think he'll be great. So, so Jim and I will be there if anybody wants to come join us.
He's a defense attorney. You know that? He's a former defense attorney.
Yeah.
That's what'll make him a great prosecutor.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think so.
We need more defense attorneys for prosecutors.
Yeah, it definitely puts a different spin to things, I think.
Yeah.
It should require like judges to be all of them,
Right.
And it should be something that recognizes the importance of all for the system to work. Okay, enough. I'm trying to leave. I'm just gonna.
All right, we gotta go.
Okay.
And now back to more Planet Green Trees. The Planet Green Trees Show.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say the problem in all of this is you've got, as you mentioned, the House of Science living in the, in the house of the police who are motivated by position and, of course, interfering with.
They have a bias.
They have a complete bias.
They have a bias. The emails and the texts revealed that they were trying to protect the program, that they were trying to insulate They kept the material. The testimony today revealed that he reluctantly conceded, but ultimately he did concede that the information they were not transparent. Information was kept. They knew what we didn't know. But can you imagine? I mean, like
Neil, just even the peripheral players, number one, saying, "Bring me."
You ever seen Curb Your Enthusiasm, where they talk about foisting that one assistant on the next person? He foisted her on you. You ever seen that?
Yeah, maybe.
Well, that's what they did to us.
Yeah.
They knew these techs were imbeciles and incompetent. You want to go a step backwards. Why in the world do we have the state police with all the money that the state police has, and they had to outsource to Intoximeters, a company that had to hire a guy that at one point was like, I think he worked for Pitney Bowes doing like copy machine repair or something, and he elevated himself to working in a chromatography company. But why are these the techs that are maintaining these machines? Why are they were retired police officers, and now they're these guys that, I mean, it's either a serious program or it's not.
Yeah, why then?
It either impacts lives and should be treated like it impacts lives, or it shouldn't.
But Neil,
I believe it's the same as yours has been for a long time, Mike. Take every bit of forensic science and testing, and it's not that complicated. Divest all of that from the Michigan State Police, create a separate unit with someone who's not a police officer, who's just a scientist, and just call it the fucking science lab. And they can give information to everybody. And they don't care what the results of the fucking cases are. They don't care whether the instrument is deemed defective or bad. They just reveal it all. That's transparency. Maybe then we'll have some confidence in the results, and we won't have to have a conversation at 10 o'clock at night about how we, after 27 years of practicing, 3.5 years in the prosecutor's office, which I'm still making penance for, by the way, I have to just now learn that there's other information that we didn't know. It's absurd.
It's absurd also, Neil. Just some of the ways that the process of them bringing it to the forefront and how it was reacted with the officer said, "Bring me the subpoena, I'll take care of it." Not normal, right? What they're just describing and their belief that somehow they can come in and defend this hiding of documents, knowing that it's not at all the appropriate thing to do. It's the wrong decision. To call it transparent and to think that they can get away with it and rely on the law to protect them in that regard, which is that they're part of law enforcement. Not only does it show how flawed the system was, how it should have been investigated, but the real reason why people are rioting in the streets. Because if they can get away with this kind of stuff, just on the trick bag stuff of getting this, the game of, how many thousands of people are convicted based on this stuff? They're just, it's all no truth.
Mike, I'm sorry, this is a con.
It's a con.
And I know Fred used the word hoax. It's a con. It's a long con. These OD33 logs that are supposed to keep track of the Monday morning accuracy checks, what the fuck good are they? Unless they keep track of all of the errors that occur, unless the public and we can see every error that ever occurred on that data master. But we don't get to see those.
Yeah, we don't get to
see all the errors.
Where are the self-avowed moral avengers, these prosecutors who, when you need a plea deal for someone who made a bad decision and did something, a young man or a young woman whose entire life is going to be impacted, whatever the crime may be, who then say, well, they did something wrong, they need to pay. Where are they when the thousands of people are being hurt by this scam? They're not there. They're never there to help us.
It's a great question.
So at the end of the day, people need to know, I think, what their liabilities are. I think one of the things that, if anything, is going to help you, the issues of possession of a firearm while committing a felony is the charge. So the idea is that there's got to be some kind of the concept is possession. Now the concept of possession can be both actual possession, which is I'm holding this
which is what it was meant to
this
be.
mouse right, this actual
That's what
possession.
it should say.
Actual possession. Then I also have a mouse at home.
Yeah, locked away.
Someplace that's
5 miles from here.
It's not my kids, it's not my wife's, and I'm possessing that. That's called constructive possession. So this concept of possession of something that you're not physically in control of, and some marijuana behavior, which may not even be physically controlled, but it's deemed as being illegal or felonious, and you've got two constructive possessions of stuff where you're not even in physical control, and a conclusion or an allegation that you are using both, or using the gun in the commission of the felony. I mean, I'm talking about a scenario where you're not even home, and they raid your house, and they got to grow, and they find a gun, and you're charged with
and you're going
being
to prison.
a felon in possession of a firearm, committing
The
a felony.
prosecutors have been selling it to the judges for years, Michael, and those judges have been buying it all along, and it's ridiculous.
But the language and the associated facts usually revolve around the accessibility to the two contraband behavior. So if you're going to have your gun in your bedroom, best to not have marijuana in your bedroom. If you're going to have your gun under the couch or someplace that's accessible from the front door, you want to have your plants locked away anyways. It's always the best advice. Separating them, I mean, the more you separate, the more you make it inaccessible to you, the less available it is for need when you for purposes of. So it's a very fine line. I think people need to know what their liabilities are, and with all that in mind, there will be a test case at some point, I'm sure, unfortunately, and but I don't know that the enforcement level is there. I think if they're involved and engaged in other illegal activity, and there's a gun there, they're going to try to stick that on you. It goes that simple. But other than that, if you're in statewide compliance, I think you've less to worry about. Although just because marijuana is still Schedule 1, I think people need to be aware of that. Alan and Jeff, can I have a second or third opinion? Where's Allie? Alan, what do you say? You got any thoughts on that?
No, I think you've accurately stated the law.
Yeah. I think it's important to clarify for people that if they lose, if they're charged with felony firearm and they lose, they're going to prison for 2 years.
Felony firearm is a terrible, terrible offense. It is on its own a very confusing jury instruction. Now, you have to understand, in order to charge someone with felony firearm, which is a crime that, if you understand what I'm saying, could never be charged alone. Felony firearm is using a firearm in the commission of another crime that's a felony, okay? So you're never going to see felony firearm charged alone. There's always a underlying felony that someone was using their firearm and committing. And the most outrageous part about the felony firearm is if you are convicted of it, it's a mandatory 2 years in prison. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. Mandatory 2 years in prison, and it will run consecutive to the probation you may get for your underlying felony. Now, I just explained that you'll never see a crime charged felony firearm alone. There'll always be an underlying felony. However, the jury instruction reads that to find the defendant guilty of felony firearm, you must conclude that the defendant committed, not convicted of. So the jury doesn't need to, and prosecutors will argue, you don't need to convict him. You can just find him guilty because he committed the marijuana, he committed this crime, not even convicted him. And you find verdicts that result in a felony firearm alone. How can that be when you have to have an underlying felony, but it's just that you committed? So what I'm saying to you is that you get in situations where it would seem illogical that someone could be convicted of just felony firearm. Juries oftentimes will split the baby if it's a contested case. They don't know, the prosecutor did a good job, I feel bad for her and him. Defense said, okay, seems like a nice guy. We'll just come up with this felony firearm, having no idea that it's a mandatory 2 years in prison. Mm-hmm. Judge, in that situation, has to sentence the person to 2 years in prison. That's what Jim's talking about, and that is one of the really difficult parts about this felony firearm crime. It has been abused. I think the most classic scenario that it was began being used for was in the era of other prohibition, but say crack and cocaine slinging on corners when people be stopping and doing all that. Someone have a gun in their waistband. Yeah. Right? You're possessing a firearm. You're committing a delivery of.
Or people were robbing people.
Felony
with
firearm,
guns.
armed robbery. Right.
Michael, The felony firearm sentence also is served before the sentence for the underlying crime. For example, Michael Richardson, who had a felony firearm, is no longer serving time for that. That time is served first. So now Michael Richardson is serving time just for marijuana. Thompson. Michael Thompson is serving
Kramer.
time.
You're thinking of Kramer.
Well, regardless, the guy was in there for 30 years. I don't remember his name. He had a felony firearm and he had like 3 pounds of marijuana.
Right. He got sentenced.
So he's already done the time for the felony firearm, and now he's just doing the time for the marijuana. That's the way it works. They make him serve the time for the gun first.
Right. There you go. So there you go. So that's the problem with felony firearm. And a marijuana case alone versus a marijuana case in a firearm, felony firearm is... Now, I would say this. What I think is also an important point moving forward is that if the state of Michigan intended to make it no longer a felony for cannabis, it would follow that you can no longer be charged with felony firearm ever in your marijuana behavior, right? Under state law. I mean, federal law is off, but I'm saying
under state law, there's only one instance when that could occur, and that is if the behavior is willful, habitual, and for a commercial purpose or involves violence. Then you're punching through the public health code. Then you're going to catch a felony firearm.
And I say aloud that with the point that I'm making is if the intention is to make it a civil infraction, I don't know how you can make out with a straight face a argument that someone should be charged with felony firearm when the underlying felony is a civil infraction or intended to be. Yeah. And by doing so, if someone has a gun, does that not make the element of violence, right? Like you're allowed to drive around with 2.5.
I mean, the police are going to say it does,
of course they
but
will.
We all know that's not the case. I mean, if simply possessing a weapon isn't violent. So that's a bullshit argument. Now, if they're waving the pistol around, then you got a problem. But simply possessing it is not reason for that.
Well, it's going to be an interesting road. I this is. I think a lot of this could be avoided with some leadership issues. I mean, I don't know that the.
Well, we can start by decriminalizing marijuana, and that is what we were promised during this campaign.
It's been legalized.
No, I mean federally.
Oh, that's not happening.
I know. I mean, I'm not naive, but it was tossed around quite a bit, and that would be a big step in helping to take care of some of these issues with the federal government.
All right, so all right, so it's the gun issue covered. Check.
Yeah,
right.
So it's legal under state, not legal under federal law. So if you go to a firearm dealer, they're going to ask you, and you have to fill out the form, and you have to tell the truth.
Jim, speak up.
He said you got to fill out the form. You got to tell the truth.
You got to fill out the form, Alan, and you got to tell the truth.
But you define what the truth is. You define the truth.
Yeah, I'm not here to tell you what the truth is.
You got to be able to defend it.
Just don't perjure yourself on a federal form.
So that's like 9 questions in one.
I know it is. There's actually a few layers there. I think it kind of speaks to the damage of the war on drugs, to be honest with you. The fact that, and I've been to some of those meetings and met with black men and those things, and the fact that they had this anti-marijuana, reefer madness mentality, and even, I'm go to church, but even within black churches, they don't understand that this war was actually affecting the people that's in this actual building negatively, and you're kind of supporting it. It's almost like you're fighting against yourself, but you don't even know it, which was like this magic trick of the war on drugs mentally. But so there is still resistance in the city. Yes, but there's also a lot of pro-cannabis people in the city as well, and I think because it's so predominantly
is there a lot of pro-cannabis? Who's the pro-cannabis people in the city? Tell me something. I mean, now we got our operators, but like name a Detroiter that's outspoken and famous.
The first name that came out to me is the guy who's always with. He was with Cushman.
Cushionberry?
Yeah, he was with Cushionberry. He always had free to weed.
Yeah,
free to
Richard Clement.
He's currently running for the school board, by the way. Well, I just recently voted for him.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So there's him.
I think my first public speaking thing, I went up after him. After he did his free the weed chant, I was like,
Richard's always so much fun.
Like, I didn't know what to say. I was like,
you can't follow that. That's why he's supposed to go last.
Well, no, that's a very good question. Who is very outgoing?
I mean, Richard's been in for 20. Like, who's changed? Who's come forward? You know what I mean?
Who's come forward?
I'm just saying it may not be.
Says that they consume too.
They consume, and marijuana should be legal, and it's destroying our people. And what's wrong with you? The church is wrong. They just want your money. We should be investing it in getting the business here.
Wow.
I don't know.
Anybody?
No. Think of the entire city council, the mayor.
Duggan doesn't talk like that. I mean, he's not.
Sports stars, anything.
But yeah, even sports stars. I mean,
you count Calvin Johnson right now? I mean,
right.
I wasn't sure where he's from. Well,
he's not from here. Yeah, but I went out and bought. I don't endorse sports athletes at all. Except I went out and bought his like a Pistons hat with his name and number on it. When he said, "Marijuana? Are you kidding? I'd be pissed at my teammates if they didn't smoke before a game." Who said that? Chauncey. And like nobody says that, right? Like there was actually an Arliss episode about that. I remember. Do you remember Arliss?
No.
You don't even know what Arliss? Anybody? Okay. I should make everybody watch it. It's funny. It's a pro marijuana. Yeah. When HBO used to be HBO. All right.
Back in the day.
Who else is it? You can't. There's nobody.
No, there's none.
No, yeah, it's.
And that's not the discussion that's taking place.
But that's not to say they don't exist. It's just that
they're not coming forward because it's not popular.
Of course.
And if they have standing in the community, like DeAndre, it would be, as they would say in Yiddish, a chandra. You know, that is like a Yiddish, like, oh my God, embarrassed the whole family.
Right.
You know,
but
grandmother's rolling over, Boobie's rolling over in her grave. This is what I'm saying. Like, if somebody came out and said that,
somebody needs to come out of the cannabis closet.
Yeah, too much cannabis closet.
It is still so. I mean,
it's a closeted community. That's where we got it. That's what it is.
What political figure in general has come? I mean, I guess Clinton said he didn't inhale.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, but who's come out?
Barack said he inhaled. That's the whole fucking point. That's coming out. That's somebody. That's somebody. Right, a leader.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's just the stigma. We're going back to the whole stigma.
Yeah,
right?
That's what I'm saying. The stigma still exists.
But that's
what I'm saying.
But like you guys said, we do it to ourselves.
We've talked about this,
and and I've said this before, but Victor Vicious.
I love Vic.
Everybody loves Vic, and they should. And he's always said that until we treat it as normal in front of the kids, we can't expect society to change. And if we treat it as taboo in front of our kids, then they will treat it as taboo, just as we have, because that's how it was treated in front of us. Yeah. And we're still not there.
Hi, this is retired Sergeant Steve Miller, and you are watching Planet Green Trees.
Here's Michael Komorn with more Planet Green Trees.
All right, I guess we're back. Thanks for staying with us.
Boom.
This is Planet Green Trees. And it is officially episode
488.
We're calling it Unsubscribe as a joke. Okay, so Amanda, do we have a question from the listeners?
We do.
Anyone that's listening, thank you for listening.
The question...
We appreciate you.
Yeah. Yes, we do. And the question is, can you move vegetative plants in a vehicle from one house to another house, both medical?
You're allowed to transport plants, and you're allowed to move them from one point to another. But the only people that can be in the car is at issue, which is the owner of those plants. I wouldn't have somebody else drive them.
Okay.
And they are moving them from their plants are moving. They're driving from point A to point B to move them from this house to this house to set up a caregiver group, right?
That's
and
what
they're
it
veg
sounds
plants and not more than the amount of plants they're allowed to possess.
Right.
As a one-time thing, yes, they should be able to. Yes, I would not make that a habit or pattern of doing it, and there's got to be.
So don't become a plant transporter.
Yeah, don't get into the transporting plant business.
Alan, do you agree or disagree?
I agree, and I'd point out that under the Medical Marijuana Act, Section 333-26423, subsection D, they say that a vehicle is an enclosed lock facility if both of the following conditions are met. One, the vehicle is being used temporarily to transport living marijuana plants from one location to another with intent to permanently retain those plants at the second location. And two, the other condition is an individual is not inside the vehicle unless he or she is either the registered qualifying patient to whom the living marijuana plants belong, or the individual designated through the departmental registration process as the primary caregiver for the registered qualifying patient.
Another way to say what Alan just said is to hear what I said, because I pretty much covered exactly that. He read the legalese to it. My advice was that, and I would say...
Don't make a habit of it.
Don't make a habit of it.
Don't pull a Ricky and grow marijuana in your car.
Permanence is important in that. Thank you, listener. That was a good question. But this particular article that I'm referring to was a very outspoken. Was it in Missouri? Where was it?
Yes, it was in Missouri.
Firearm in Missouri is fairly easy, but sign up for medical marijuana card or using the substance can take that right away. Captain Sean Cowley with the Buchanan Sheriff's Department, Sheriff's Office Drug Strike Force said it will even make a legally obtained gun illegal to possess.
Oh, really? Huh.
The assumption is if you get the marijuana card, you are a user and you are prohibited. I think that's going to be a big thing in Missouri, especially.
It's interesting. I
like sentences that end in especially, because it tells me that whoever said this is stupid.
Yeah.
People have to understand you're getting that medical marijuana card, you're giving up your gun rights. He said, especially. Just kidding. I don't know if that's. I don't know. Can anyone tell me if they know that anyone from the Michigan State Police ever went out and pronounced this?
No.
There's never been a declaration of this.
No, there's been plenty of officers that, like you said, that in in interactions with the public, that have said things similar to this. But I'm unaware of any agency in the state that has.
In Michigan, I've heard it in other places. Have you heard any? Can you think of a time where there's like a Michigan State commander, where they pose the issue to someone, put it, to get to the bottom of it?
No, because it was always clear to everybody. The Michigan Medical Marijuana Act, along with MRTMA, are both very clear that shall be denied no right, and certainly the right to possess a firearm under the U.S. Constitution, the Second Amendment, falls within that category.
Well, if there's any issue that the federal government could see it otherwise, make an issue, it's because it's Schedule 1.
Yes. Yep.
Okay? That's number 2.
But that's the federal government.
Even though we have the ATF that oversees the firearms, the gun issue and registrations is at the state level, Alan, right? This is not a federal. It's kind of like alcohol, right?
Right now, the registration of the gun isn't the problem. It's the fact that when you go into...
No. I'm saying the reason why someone would say you can't have a gun is because they would say marijuana is a Schedule 1 at the federal level, and the ATF says blah, blah, blah. But the reality is you're in a state that's selling it for tax. It can't be a Schedule 1.
Right. And if you go to any one of these stores, well, I shouldn't say anyone, but there's many of them that have armed security on the premises. I mean, it's comical. Absolutely comical.
Well, I think there's a distinction that's being made between a caregiver or being around it, selling it, and using it. You know, the theme of the patient is that it's a Schedule 1 and therefore use it. There's no medical reason to use it, no reason. It's drug addiction, it's highly addictive, whatever. That's the stupid theory. I don't buy into it, and nobody should. And I just thought it was interesting. The reason that article got chosen is because this officer was so outspoken, and I wanted to point out that he ends sentences especially.
Well, you know, Missouri, they do it differently, I guess. But, you know, whatever. This is just one more reason that it should be descheduled. And all these problems go away. Because it is a problem. I mean, it doesn't impact your ability to possess a firearm in state level or to get a firearm license, but certainly it impacts your ability to go into a federally licensed dealer and obtain a firearm. And, you know, that is where all of this stems from. And it goes beyond that. The fact that it's federally illegal continues to stifle any progress, any meaningful progress in the states, you know, regarding the medical use of marijuana.
Yes.
Statistical data of the people that are brought into the criminal justice system that start with these police encounters that are disproportionate and end up in jail or prison, that's disproportionate. And I'm not just saying these are statistics that is in the recent Governor Whitmer's commission on prison overcrowding. And that report concludes that they are wasting time, money, and resources arresting and bringing people to court for what should be civil infractions, but they're not creating them civil infractions. They're bringing them to court. They're resulted in warrants. They're resulted in, you know, monies owed, the pay to play, and the court being you owing money to the court and being in prison because of a debt or debtors' prisons is what has evolved out of this, and it tears apart certain groups within our community at large. I mean, you don't have to go much far within our own cannabis reform community to know that of the individuals that are arrested for cannabis, even though the use up until legalization, as far as everyone knew, was equal, disproportionately much greater for Black and brown people. And but those are just the things that bring them into the system. I'm going to talk from the greater scale of what is going on and how can we, we have to talk about this. We have to figure out what's going on. I don't know that we can figure out a solution at this point, but we certainly need to talk about and point out what exactly is taking place. And beyond that, we have this phenomena also that oftentimes, if charged, it's a long time coming before they are charged, that it's not always necessarily the charges that would normally be brought against a citizen. And furthermore, they seemingly are very, very difficult to obtain convictions in various jurisdictions across the state. We've seen this over and over and over again, seemingly justifying the behavior that brought the officers into court. Now, there have been situations that have gone both ways where officers have been convicted of crimes, but the ones that seem to be the most disastrous and most offensive are the ones seemingly that the officers are getting away with it. And I want to take the position tonight, and I want to see if we can talk about this a little bit as to this is not acceptable, and it is something that is in our in the marketplace of events that are occurring amongst this pandemic, should not be overlooked. And it's probably a good time to focus why something like that would happen, especially now when things are supposed to be, you know, scaled back, not so policing and law enforcement under the circumstances, fewer people are out and there's less activity. You know, law enforcement has proclaimed they're not going to be responding to property crimes. Some of them have proclaimed they're not going to be following the law, enforcing executive orders or whatnot. But there's a long list of individuals. You should probably name them all. Those that have been taken too early just from their interaction with a law enforcement officer. And what I'm saying is this: you know, there are some that may, in any of these situations, suggest that there was police officers were interacting with the suspect. They maybe they would argue they have a right to investigate, they have a right to detain, or right to arrest if believed probable cause. And that may be true or may not be true. That's not the question I'm talking about. But What I am trying to point out is that in those circumstances, under no acceptable, we should never be in a position that we're accepting a death of another human would result from that encounter, absent some kind of obvious threat of death or something like that. And that is not the case in this George Floyd case, and it's not the case in many of the other videos that have captured the same kind of atrocities that have taken place. And I know that the mayor of Minnesota acted quickly. He wanted the officers fired immediately. Usually they'll do an internal investigation, which is always problematic. Another thing to think about, that when these things take place, who's doing the investigating? Most of the time it's the agency that, could potentially be involved in it. And the questions of transparency are always lingering. And oftentimes there's an attempt, it seems, to protect the officers from within the law enforcement community, is what is commonly known as the thin blue line. But we've seen it too much. And, it's got the same kind of, it should have the same kind of national attention as this pandemic right now. I can't, there's no better time than to recognize the mistakes of it and take some steps to do this. And I don't know what the answers are, but I do think it begins with the training and procedures and protocol. And even if I may be so forward as to, I don't know, like the legislature needs to, the federal legislature needs to amend the immunity provisions, the governmental immunity provisions for 1983 civil rights actions. Because as it's been said many times, you're not going to make them stop until they have to write a check.
They have to be personally liable.
In anticipation of the world ending one day, 17 countries, including North Korea, have sent 21,500 seeds to the Doomsday seed vault. In Norway. These seeds include 31 strains of cannabis and 8 strains of hemp.
Yeah,
they're being kept safe and will be used to repopulate the earth,
world.
Fauna. Once we humans destroyed all. The USA hasn't contributed any cannabis or hemp seeds. Good job, USA. North Korea's kicking our ass. How can we say we're third world?
If we tried to contribute the one strain they are using in Mississippi, they probably wouldn't. Really...
Yeah, they say sorry. We got some good. We got some good.
We're full.
We got some good North Korean. We got some good North Korean over here. That should be a strain. The North Korean, really. 200-year-old seeds. Been like. They probably do. They're probably there's probably the one country that still has, they probably have the decordicators, right? There's not a lot of those going around, but they have them and use them. And it's too bad we don't know that information, Alan. They arguably could still be using it as a cash crop, the hemp. What do you say? I know you were, weren't you either abducted? Was it an alien abduction or North Korean abduction? But I thought you had some information on this. Which is it?
Either way, there was a probe involved, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I was probed, that's for sure.
Well, what do you know about hemp in North Korea, Alan?
I think that hemp would be very good for North Korea, but I don't have any personal knowledge. I've never been there.
Do you think that there's? Here you go, Alan. You heard Jamie pontificating over there, asking to be disabused.
I'm probed. Do
you think that the reason we don't see so many North Koreans fleeing, and there has been protests and riots, and as terrible as we understand it to be, we don't know. They haven't revolted, is because cannabis is legal.
Yes, that's got to be the reason. And to take it a step further, could you imagine if we allowed cannabis in our prisons? We'd probably have a lot less prison riots.
Well, doesn't that make an argument for the antagonist that would say, well, you want a population that's going to be okay with being at the mercy of a dictator with no, democracy, no capitalism, just to smoke some weed and let it run rampant? Would you trade in the tomato plant model of marijuana to live in North Korea? That's a good question.
No, I wouldn't.
Okay. I mean, who knows? I mean, forget that for a second. But do you think there's anything to that, Jim Powers? Do you think that there's trace amounts in the air of cannabis in North Korea?
Yes.
Well, let me finish my answer. I would rather have it illegal and live here with our other freedoms in the United States than live in North Korea where cannabis is legal. And I realize there's some risk if it's illegal of going to jail for a harmless plant, but we've got Michael Komorn here to protect us.
That's a good answer.
Yeah.
That's a good answer. What do you think about that, Jim? Do you think that these smoking of cannabis
I
or the
think
trace
as much
amounts...
as it's you protecting us, I think you might see Alan at the bond hearing. In
Listen,
all fairness.
I know. That's funny. That's funny. That's true. That's true. Alan is my man, and he will wear that cannabis pin into that court proudly. He does. He likes to let the judges know how stupid they are. Interesting enough, I had a
nice,
and it doesn't always happen, but I had taken care of a traffic ticket for a friend of a friend kind of thing that we were able to coordinate the same day. So those are always, type of situations in court where I'm on my knees begging for something. You know what I mean? It's there's not a lot to fight about. So I knew I had this fight later in the day, so I waited to try to resolve that first. It was real nice talking. But yeah, I got that one. Let's wait that one later on. And I got like a blockading traffic. The guy was going like 100 miles per hour. Something like this. No, this is in Ann Arbor today. In Arbor today. But it was like, had this stuff gone afterwards, they would have told me, like, take the points, screw you. It was an interesting morning. But it's a racket. What am I going to say? I have a tough time now. I have a tough time walking into courts and not saying this is a racket, this is a joke. Did anyone read this report? This is evidence of it right here. I rest my case. Nobody cares. I mean, it's just but
I care.
I know it does. I mean, it just emphasizes that all the things I've been saying in this show are not just words coming out of my mouth. That was my favorite thing. Judge, these aren't my words. I'm just emphasizing what the report says. Saying you're motivated by money, not by justice. I mean, I can't help myself. So so that's my rant, I guess. I just it's unfortunate that we still have these things going on. It's a bigger problem though, and I think it's mostly because they were relying so much on revenue for marijuana cases in the court system. 40% gone. They're gonna hold on to these things, and you're gonna test like a madman. We're gonna make it up somehow. We're gonna bleach out at $20 here, at $15 here. All right. So what are we gonna do about it? Let's talk about the license industry and move on. I guess right. That's always how we can resolve things. And I would say this, that under the theory of the tail wagging the dog, is she out there kicking in doors? Is she doing, this fucking the drug test with the freaking search warrants that they're signing off on?
Who's charging all these people?
Okay, well, my point is this, that they kick in the door, the cops, they bring the case there. A decision has to be made. Am I going to be the type of prosecutor that gets rid of medical marijuana cases, or am I going to be forced to politically align myself with these out-of-control rogue sheriffs? I'm not making an excuse for her, but I'm saying if it's true, as Karen McDonald said, that it's the culture that they dominate. She's got to be Mother Teresa in order to beat them back or something. And she's not Mother Teresa. She's got no, you know what I mean? And it's a political death probably to try to change that culture. That's all I'm saying. I'm not giving her an excuse. I'm just talking about it from a reality of her scenario. She never thought, like, I'm going to be the one that's going to charge all these cases up to the Michigan Supreme Court about medical marijuana. The investigation that take place, to be brought in, very rarely are these marijuana cases like overseeing the investigations by the prosecutors. That's kind of like federal U.S. attorney stuff. They usually kick in a door, get someone to roll, they go to another place, kick in a door, get what they can, leave some out there, file a bunch of fucking, requests for warrants and see if some charges get filed. Yes, they do ultimately have to make the decision, but when the sheriff's department's sitting on a bunch of forfeiture and evidence room full of plants, they can't say, nah, we're going to not sign the warrant. I mean, there's a political alliance.
Oh, that's not true.
Yeah, but Michael, in the Ferguson case, I don't know what's going on in Texas exactly, but we're very well connected to somebody who he was involved in their case, and the facts of that case are very similar to what was surrounding the facts of the reason he was fired. So in which he went in and took a look at potential evidence before there was any ever warrants or anything like that. So how in the case of Texas, are those old cases in which the police officer was involved and the facts were similar like that? Those are getting dismissed.
Yes, that's
so. I mean, I don't know. So was there ever an opportunity to ever do anything about that, to revisit that, or?
This is the point I'm making. It is. I mean, they did their own internal investigation. What did it show? We don't know. They themselves decided what was good and what was bad about that investigation. And then they decided, of the hundreds of cases, let's say in that 4-year span, which ones was he involved?
There was like 17 that got dropped or something like that.
It wasn't enough. And what does it say for the other officers that were in his unit that observed it in those 17 times that made it such that they would have to be dismissed? Don't tell me that being around that, not reporting it happening before them, testifying in cases that forwarded the misrepresentation of the affidavit, sticking to the story. I mean, all get passes. It's just him and him alone. They got groups of drug task forces, teams. He's the only one. Nobody knew what's going on. That is a crime. If they don't know what's going on, they don't have safeguards in place, that other people don't have a requirement to report it. This is my point. We know all the fucking time that they're lying in these affidavits and search warrants. The courts there give every benefit of the doubt to the officers. If a magistrate rubber stamps it, that's good enough for the judge at the time that you might challenge the search warrant. So when you catch them with their sexual organ in the mashed potatoes, and that visual is there, that they have forever been tainted as someone that doesn't have some mashed potato fetish or something. You cannot call them anything other than a mashed potato fetish with the sex. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's it. They have been deemed outside of the realm of actors that can participate in the system because they have been caught lying. And those that are participating with them, that gave them the mashed potatoes, that looked away and didn't tell anyone the mashed potatoes, all of them are equal to blame. And that example there is emblematic of the problem, that it is a culture and they protect their own, and it is 100% thin blue line stuff. Jeff Frasier, what do you say?
No, you nailed it. Absolutely nailed it. And again, the prosecutor is the key, but it's like you say. Do you think that some of these prosecutors that we run across really have the power to go after any of these task forces, or for that matter, any cops that are abusing? I don't know, man. I think that the prosecutors compromise. And
I tell you, I don't get it. And I tell Michael and other people this story every time. I look at like a case, some of the cases we have, and I think, where the hell did the prosecutor connect the dots to bring these charges against these people?
We have someone advocating for unlimited weight, meaning
dry weight, so you could cure stuff longer and stuff.
Well, that should be the case. You talk about a caregiver situation.
Yeah.
So that was just. I mean, I think we've talked about this even on this show before. That was a total misfire in interpretation at a time when all interpretations were designed to be as restrictive as possible. So similar. Well, similar in the MRTMA for an adult just wants to grow 12 plants at home, that person can keep everything harvested off of those plants. They're not immediately put into, the
danger zone.
Yeah, into a bad situation because they happen to have a good harvest and everything worked out well for all the plants that they're allowed to grow. So I mean, it should have been a foregone conclusion that you're going to harvest this stuff, and then, maybe if anybody's going to make any adjustments, it's more along the lines of make sure you store it in a certain room or under certain conditions or something like that. Well, no, I'm talking about not being over and allowed a limit for possession as a caregiver because you had a good harvest for all the plants that you were allowed to grow, and then you're suddenly stuck with an amount that is puts you into a legal
under the recreational
snafu.
And I think that legal conflict to me is
Under
the
the
most interesting.
That doesn't. The law doesn't say that. That was just an interpretation.
Caregiving, MMA?
Yes, caregiving. We're talking about caregiving under the MMA.
Okay, you're saying
you're allowed to grow 60 plants or whatever.
But you can only possess.
But the interpretation is that you can only possess 15 ounces, which it doesn't have to be looked at like that. There's nothing that restricts somebody from being able to.
It's a question of whether it's usable at that point, and the only thing a caregiver has is to have it in an unusable state or kind of.
It's a question if it's usable in the real world right now, but the interpretation that you're limited to only being in possession of 15 ounces after the harvest
we weren't
is the
asking
issue.
for the amendments to the MMA per se. We're asking about what changes would maybe be made for. Are you saying a change to fix the rec would be to open up the caregiver's possession?
But nobody seems to care about a caregiver can drop off more than 15 ounces, right, without any
well, let's say it this
issue,
way.
isn't
Say
that
it this
right?
way. I mean, for the rec, for the rec
processor
law,
or the.
Well, listen, it would make sense that they would allow for
question on that
for caregivers who were also growing recreational to take some of their supply to recreational. Why not directly to the growers until they get them going, and I don't know, or at least to the. Expand. I don't know. Anyway, they can't just let people grow illegally. But people can grow 12 plants, right?
Sure.
So it can come from anywhere. Why would that not?
Well,
follow?
Just for people who are listening who are wondering what the actual language is, if you Google like Lansing, MRA public hearing February, all it comes up, and you can click on the link. If you want to look up licensees, operations, sampling and testing, infused products. These are all the proposed rule set language, and you can read the actual, because there's, it's one of those things, I think, when people jump into this business or they've been into it a long time and a rule gets put in place and then suddenly you have to follow it. If it doesn't make any sense and it's already in place, I feel like it's a lot harder to undo a rule than to learn about the rule as it's being made, which is just to say, if you're tired of dealing with all that language and wording and everything just to run your business, I think it's still worth it to, and I can feel the frustration of people just not wanting to deal with all the nitty gritty, but to understand this is going to determine if I can transfer this product to that product, or if I can grow this much or that much, or what I'm going to be charged for, and all these kind of things. And you just never know. You have to be careful about every little line of that language. So anyway, that's what I'm saying.
But I want to quote my friend Jeff Frasier, and I maybe paraphrase this a little bit and apply it differently, but the rule of law by definition has meaning only when it is applied equally and to all. And just like the judicial system, the jury system, it only works if people believe in it. And I just, we're in a very strange time, and I think a lot of people have different concerns about how this is going forward. And it may be political, it may be, not political, but I say from a perspective of a lawyer, we cannot start allowing as the norm or accepting the idea that the rule of law is not important. And finally, just to close, many people may not know this, but there was a vote recently in the Senate of the United States whereby one vote short, missing by one vote, the legislation did not pass into law as a rider to the Patriot Act, which while all this is going on, I sound like I got a tin hat on now, but while all this is going on, the Senate convened and was passing the Patriot Act, tracking United States citizens. And one of the things that was tried to add to this, which did not get added, they didn't have enough votes, was that that the government would be able to access individuals' web browsers without a search warrant, So this would be disconcerting, and in light of all that's going on and the challenges of the rule of law, let's not lose sight of the general principles of the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and some of those ideas that have have slowly been eradicated. And oftentimes during disasters and emergencies, our civil liberties are put in jeopardy. And the point I want to make tonight is that the rule of law is important and our civil liberties are even more important. And let's not start sacrificing those under any circumstances. This is not a political statement. That's my rant. I did it kind of on time. I think we can take a break and get...
Good, Michael. That was like the shortest rant ever.
All right, appreciate that. I hope it made some sense. I'm calling. We're taking a break, whether it's time or not. How's that?
Yeah, I think it's a perfect time for a break, and then we'll come back and we'll have our special guest.
Excellent.
Hopefully.
All right.
Yep, we certainly will. So a quick break, and then we're ready to rock.
Excellent. You listen to Planet Green Trees, episode number 464, The Barber of Seville.
Or
The Planet Green Trees Show.
I'm saying, you know, what I guess the point I'm making, trying to make is that before you can even talk about this problem and point it out, you have to understand that the court system makes a lot of money because they got these tests that are testing your urine, you know, and they're catching you for what could be anything. Could be a poppy seed, could be a, you know, secondhand smoke. Could be, I don't know, maybe that's the thing. Could
Some
be
hand sanitizer.
Hand sanitizer. And the testing protocols are not the types of testing protocols that would ever be admissible in a court of law anywhere. They never pass a dauber. There's no representation of error rate. There's no representation of whether, or even chain of custody. It's a joke. But you're on probation. It's a gift. If the court wants to make a finding that, counsel, what's another reason that he could have, you know, had metabolite then? Judge, it's not an illegal substance. Well, how else could it gotten his system, counsel? It's not a legal substance.
I didn't put it there.
You know what I'm saying? This is the argument that goes back and forth. It doesn't take a lot to draw these conclusions.
And it's probably not a winning argument, I would say.
What it is a way in which judges have you do this. Mr. Defendant, Mrs. Defendant, walk to the front of the bench if you don't mind. I make the following findings, blah, 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 and they pull the lever and you fall into the, you know, into the fucking well where the alligators are. They don't care. No. It's just, it's a thing on their menu that they can check off and find you. You see what I'm saying? The point I'm trying to make is that act of in giving them the tool, the fishing, to reel that in and make it so violative, the sentence is money in their pocket. You're going to be paying them some way. It's going to enhance the probation fees. It's going to justify all that's going on.
Fines and costs.
Now, how can a judge make that decision? You think the judge is going to make an objective decision on some metal? Of course, if I'm relying on the money coming out of that person's pocket by going to jail or letting him go and accepting the idea that it's not a controlled substance, number one, and number two, it may be from hemp. You think they have the wherewithal to look beyond their financial motivation?
Probably not.
To pay the bills, to think clearly and objectively? Is there any possibility of that to take place?
No. Absolutely not.
No.
Don't take it from me. Read the trial court funding report.
Right.
In fact, listen to Planet Green Trees episode number. There's a clip we should play of Bridget McCormick saying that it's a real problem.
It's a huge problem.
The electorate has reason to have lost faith in its judiciary. What? No one's talking about this in courts. Anyways, there'll be more science, I'm sure, that will carry the day as it always has, and the science that has stood up to the crazy lies born about marijuana, propagandized, that have caused a lot of problems in our history. And it's 9:15. We're going to take a quick break. Jim has pulled out a stick. I don't want to mess around with that. This is Planet Green Trees 491. Jim, we're coming back to you when we get back after the break. Don't go anywhere. Jeff. I don't bother you. I know this is Jeff. You're not really participating. You're mostly doing work during this period of time. I feel you. Just kidding. We'll be right back. Planet Green Trees.
The Planet Green Trees Show.
It's weird times out there, and a lot of conspiracy theories that are false and fraudulent. But the like the hydrochloroquine and our leadership of insanity that's taking place. But
I was texting with my band members earlier this evening, and they both claim that COVID-19 is a lie. Is that going around now?
How about this? How about that the Zoom is owned by a Chinese company. And they're collecting everybody's everything right now. They are. It is. It's. I think it is. I think it's.
It could be. Yeah, they're right in. Chinese government.
Made a couple conspiracies.
That's distressing.
It also could have been caused by the 5G network, which is running rampant. Do you know about that?
Oh,
right?
yeah. I've heard a few things about that, too. We're all doomed. No worries. We're just accept it.
Right.
But the problem I have with that, if you think about it scientifically, is if you're getting those 5G rays into your body, that should be killing virus, not causing it, in my opinion.
That's right. In fact, one of the things that I think is an effective method, in addition to Clorox and sun, is to take your phone and put it into your mouth and listen, so it gets into your body. Like, that's a good thing. Like that, just try it. What do you have to lose? Just try it. Just try it.
Also, if you stand in front of your microwave every time you use it, you might get some residual radiation, can kill virus.
Yes, but the secondary side effects of all that electromagnetic radiation can have bad effects on the person. Like, look what happened to Saul's brother, Chuck McGill.
I mean, are you guys worried? They announced that whole Obamagate thing. We should be concerned that maybe the end of Obama's presidency. It could be over now. Do you think?
I have a feeling he's coming back. What if Joe Biden selects Barack Obama as his running mate?
He's not
and then dies. What happens then?
That would throw everybody for a loop.
No, if he were to die, Obama would become president, and that would defeat the 23rd Amendment.
No, because it's only consecutive. They can't serve more than 2 consecutive terms as president. You can become president again. Yes, you can.
What, Teddy Roosevelt?
Yes, we can.
They'd have to amend. No, there's an amendment. They'd have to repeal the something amendment in order so someone could go on more. But we could probably, how about some of the tweeting that goes on? Does anyone,
same?
Yeah, like I'm just saying, like the self-awareness,
God.
the lack of. I mean,
it's horrible.
Generally speaking, it's just.
It's an embarrassment.
A tweet is something Barbara Walters used to give her dog. Okay, I mean now we're talking about. Because I'm working on some jokes. I'm working them out here. Work with me a little bit. Doing jokes right now.
Late night. Good stuff. So before we sign off, I want to say that we are excited at Botanical Company to have the redemption products.
That's really cool.
And looking forward to that. We will, when we all meet together.
Congratulations to both.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Congratulations. It's so awesome.
No one's talking about Midland, which is a tragedy, and I don't mean to blow this bubble up, but what about all the chemicals that surround that stuff from all the...
Oh, it could be nasty.
To you guys. Oh my gosh. Michael was reading that Dow chemical.
I'm just saying, like if that surrounding area had some chemicals, because it's a town that is in the chemical industry, just some.
Didn't it hit the waste, their treatment pools, whatever, they're flooded and yeah.
And what is it?
So it's bringing up all these chemicals from like 8 years ago that have sunken into the earth, and now they're so saturated, all this stuff's going to come up.
Oh, it's going to be ugly.
But it affects ugly. It affects all the water in Michigan, right? It's just like it's going to all find its way.
It's probably already in Lake Huron by now.
There's already so many notices I see at the supposedly fresh waters of bodies of water, where it says, "Do not eat the fish." Like, I mean, do you really want to even dip your toes in there if you can't eat the fish? I don't know. But now, I mean, we're dealing with a whole different monster because all these things that have been buried deep, all these chemicals, as we know, they've already been ruining the waterways in a massive way. And, you know, it seems like after we were talking to a couple people, and it seems like there's a gentleman that it's individually owned. And he had been cited several times to correct the dam, fix the dam. There was a $16 million contract that they were going to, they were buying it from him so that it could be managed properly. And they were about to close the deal, except for he had to do one more repair before the deal closed. $16 million. He did not do the repair. And as we know, everything, the dam broke. The dam broke.
It's intense. Those pictures are wild with the water levels all the way to the top of the stop signs.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah, there were a couple of houses that completely got washed away.
I lived up there for a few months while I was in the police academy in Midland. And I could see how they could have
with Hightower,
like a lower set town, isn't it?
Yeah.
What's that, Jamie? What was that? What was
with that? Hightower,
Tower and Mahoney.
Yeah, police academy. Sneak out at night.
Those are some good movies. I like when Bobcat Goldthwait joined up. He was a good one.
That's funny.
Those are good movies. They really are.
I like that there was some threats of not giving aid because of political reasons. I like when those things are intertwined and professionalism prevails.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I see someone in the background here running some PG3 microphone. Wow, Amanda, they teased it a little bit. They teased the segment of Amanda reporting from Midland. I saw.
Are we off the air now?
We're still going. I don't think
we're
still going. Okay.
Oh yeah, we did, but I think we can put out like a little segment about that later or something. But yeah, we got some great stuff up there and talked to a lot of people that had been affected by all of this stuff, and you know, they unfortunately the general consensus that we've talked to probably about 3-4 people, different residents, and although FEMA is going to provide some assistance, but insurance will not cover these things. And the reason why is because I guess there has something to do with it being like their homeowners insurance or whatnot. It has to be like a broken pipe or some act of nature, you know, act of God.
You got to get flood insurance, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you got to get a separate rider for the flood.
Well, here's the deal. There were a couple of people saying that yes, that the flood stuff is true, but it's for broken pipes and things like that happen in your house, not when the dam breaks and takes everything that you own.
And the idea that
right. Regular home insurance normally would do that, but because the flood caused it, they're not. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm hearing from the residents. Yes.
Well,
this is just there are no words.
That liability
I have for what I'm seeing here
has to be covered by the taxpayers separately. Like if you know what I mean, they're already paying taxes. That should be managed properly. I mean, there's some.
There was an individual that owned the dam. It was not owned by like a governmental agency or anything. That's the part of the problem. So it's like he
just completely gone.
I guess did not keep it up and make the repairs.
And he's going to get sued.
And
yeah, but that's
yes.
It's almost irrelevant.
Absolutely.
Kind of money that could pay for this. Whatever. Where's the guys? You know,
Yeah, this guy's not going to pay for all this.
Yeah,
Nobody's going to pay for it. I don't know how it's all going to pan out, but these folks seem to think they're not going to get any assistance because of the way that it happened, because he owned it. He owns the dam.
You know, I would say this is
now.
I think. Listen, I just pointed this out. We, you know, as we look at the emergency situation we've been in, and look to our leaders and how they've performed, I think, you know, and everyone's going to have their own view of what that and whatnot. But you know, this is not a time where we just want to look to like leadership to try to fix the problem that's occurred here. I think it's fair to say, like, what leadership failed to not prevent this from happening, right? This whole description here has been that they knew it was going to happen. It was, you know, been cited. It was about to happen. They were, you know, Amanda, you said the stories that they were waiting on him to do something. Well, what is that? I mean, this is like an emergency that they didn't foresee happening.
Exactly. They had been slapping him with you know, all kinds of different complaints and things like that, and he was sometimes not showing up to court, and just apparently it's like a real thing that has been a problem, and the residents knew that this dam was going to break. They just did not know when it was going to break, and they were hoping that he was going to follow through and secure that peace. But he didn't.
You know what those
and so now obviously
they need those drug.
What's that?
They need these drug task force officers on that case, right? Because they'll go in a door because someone's got a plant, right? But there's about the death, you know, the whole destruction and terror, and who knows what else, and they're got them citing tickets.
It's horrible.
Like, you tell me they can't go in and take over that problem as a public health concern? I mean, that's like a leadership. I mean, that is an example of every bit of our resources put in the wrong spot right there. I don't care whatever arrest was ever made. I don't care whatever person was put away. That is a government failure at the greatest level. Jamie, are you objecting to me?
I'm not objecting. I'm just getting very tired. It's 11:10. Show should come to.
Calling it. Call it, Jamie. Way to call it. Good call.
Good call, Jamie.
Calling it. Good call.
Appreciate Ryan being on here, and I liked hearing from Terry McDonald tonight too. It was a win. We could use that kind of attitude as another good prosecutor, and looking forward to having Ryan's products in this weekend.
Yeah.
It was a good show, you guys.
Gives me hope for Esteban's.
Really good show. Really good show.
Really good show. I'll see you next week. Well, most of you I'll see sooner than that, but you know what I'm saying.
10 or 11.
See the viewers next week.
I've never seen anything like this. This is a dark moment for the justice.
The Planet Green Trees Show.
You know, there was a time when the legislature enacted the transport of marijuana law. Like the MMA said, you can possess X amount, and it doesn't have a, you know, what condition is not how you're carrying it in your car. And the legislature, without amending the MMA, created another law. Oakland County did not enforce that, oddly. I mean, you know, under certain, it was a clear interpretation, later overturned as a invalid. But the interpretation, and Pam has been proffering an interpretation of the MRTMA, or the recreational law, as follows: if you are outside of the limitations of an adult over the age of 21, and there is not a specified penalty articulated within that law, section 14 and 15 and 4 and 5, I think, are the ones that cover it, then you default back to the public health code. So if, for example, there is not a specifically articulated penalty associated with the behavior, like smoking in public, it says you can't smoke in public, right? So it doesn't say if you smoke in public, it's a fine or a it doesn't say anything. So the interpretation of this by Pam has been, well, since there's no penalty, it doesn't articulate it, you default back to the public health code, which is, unfortunately, the way they interpreted the MMA. Like, it's immunity, and if it doesn't tell you what's wrong when you're outside of immunity, you default back to, you know, you're back. What do you mean? I had a card. Nope, you're
drug dealer. You know, it was that kind of flip flop. So that is one particular area. Like of course, someone would have to bring a ticket or a complaint, and the prosecutor's office would sign it. But to give people a little bit of notice, those areas, for example, there's the possessing marijuana. Smoking in public. There is there's a number of different issues that come up regarding people under the age of 21, right? The laws for adults over the age of 21, and these protections, you know, you're not prohibited, it's legal. But under 21, game on. All the same laws would apply, would be an argument and interpretation. I've heard other prosecutors. What is your thoughts on that? Just from the outset. I mean, if it's not articulated within the statute as a penalty, how should we be interpreting that for that behavior?
Well, without really getting into the weeds on a technical basis, I guess the way I would interpret it is I will always opt towards the most reasonable position. And when I say reasonable, I mean avoiding criminalizing somebody who's using marijuana. Again, I think it should be regulated, but I don't think we really need to shift from this idea that as a prosecutor, your role is to seek the absolute highest charge you possibly can to choose the charge that carries the most punishment behind it, and whether it makes sense or not. So I don't know technically how would I interpret that, but what I do know is we're going to be reasonable about it, and we don't want people to have felonies. You know, we don't want. I'm going to avoid charging people who I do not believe are engaged in criminal behavior, whether or not the law allows me to do that or not. Because I believe that's what being smart on crime is all about. And why to be wasting all of this time and money and effort within the prosecutor's office, within the judicial system, the criminal justice system, on activities that shouldn't be criminal, you know? So I guess that's the way I would answer that. Like, I don't want more people to be convicted of felonies. I mean, it just makes no sense to me. Again, want to keep our streets safe, want to protect the public, but this is not about protecting the public. How is interpreting the law in a way that would allow you to charge somebody with a serious felony or even a high misdemeanor? How is that protecting the law, the people of our community? If it's a marijuana charge, how is that protecting somebody?
Do you think that those cases that were charged that may still be going on? I have a couple of, do you think that the recreational law applies backwards, retroactively to marijuana cases that have not been disposed of yet?
Yes. And I also don't think, I think people who have marijuana convictions on their record, that those should be expunged. I mean, it's just fair. I mean, why wouldn't somebody who has a possession of marijuana case and a conviction on their record that prevents them from doing something they really want to do, usually a job, by the way, why wouldn't we allow that conviction to be expunged? Again, it just makes sense to me. It just makes sense.
Are you saying that from a policy or interpretation of the law that it does have a retroactive effect on not to undo a conviction? I mean, I understand that's
if you're asking me of cases that are currently going on, but they were charged before the law was in effect, I would immediately apply the new law. Like, I don't care. I mean, that's how powerful your prosecutor is. They can at any moment decide to dismiss that charge. And why wouldn't you, if just because the day on the calendar we said it was illegal, but now we don't, and you're still going to spend efforts and resources and time and money prosecuting that? Does that make sense to you? I don't think that makes sense.
I agree.
I'd rather focus my attention on trying to, keep child sexual assault. I mean, or domestic violence, or armed robbery. I mean, there are things that we really should be spending some time on. Treatment courts, so that we don't have this repeat offender constantly. I mean, there's so many more things that are just more important.
People that are growing marijuana as an adult recreation, allowed to have 12 plants, got to be in a closed lock facility. Do you think that they should have to relinquish their Second Amendment right to protect their home and house and not have a gun in the house? Do you think that, these are questions as a lawyer I get asked all the time. I'm a patient or caregiver. Now it's legal to have to get rid of my gun. Is this an issue that you see?
Well, I mean, do they have that? I mean, we don't. It's just. Do we have a law that prevents people from having alcohol in their home? As a judge, I saw so many cases where people legally possessed a weapon, but because of alcohol, used it in a way that victimized people. Sure. But I mean, that just doesn't make sense to me. Look, we allow people to legally own guns. That is not something I have ever chosen to do. Though I grew up in a household where my dad was and still is a big hunter, so there were guns in our home. But if you're following the law, I don't see how it relates. So again, I go back to what makes sense. Just because the charge is available for you to make does not mean it's the right thing to do. Because once you charge somebody with several offenses, you're really setting them down a path that you can't unwind. And by the way, they don't want to unwind because they won't even dismiss or amend the charge. So, I don't.
David's itching to get on. I'm gonna turn his mute button up. I just want to make a couple of comments because he's going to try to take over. But you mentioned a couple of things that I thought were really important. I want to say this: that Jessica Cooper has disappointed every lawyer from my view that she got to support her when she got elected. She did nothing to have any empathy or sense of compassion to the people that she brought into the criminal justice and all the programs, as you mentioned, that allow for first-time offender things. Not happening. You got to get double secret permission from some chain of custody that you can't even walk up. Very, very difficult. Most lawyers of first offense, they know they're probably going to get it impaired when they walk into court. Not in Oakland County. You got to beg and grovel for that, if that's even a thing. And that's just non-marijuana cases. And it's quite distressing that not only did she end those programs, but she misled a lot of people into thinking that she was going to champion those things. And I would also agree with you that one of the things missing, and I see it and hear it all the time, that the people that are brought into the system are damaged. Like, I don't think anyone grows up and says, I want to be a criminal. It's a matter of circumstance, economics, education, culture, lifestyle, all the things that they're born into. And they may not have the skills to survive in normal circumstances they find themselves. Now, I'm not saying I'm defending the criminal activity, but I'm saying the way you deal with it for the next round and how you get the improvement, break out of the cycle. Nothing in the court system provides that path. Very little, if any. And in the way we're dealing not yet. In the way we're dealing with a lot of these social issues, like, for example, I saw the sheriffs, their best argument why we shouldn't legalize marijuana was they do 5 home calls per day for mental health issues, and marijuana legalization is going to create more of those. My question was, why are police officers doing mental health calls at somebody's house? We are totally putting the money in the wrong spot. These are not public safety.
Exactly. And officers want tools. They want tools because they are doing those calls. I don't know what it has to do with marijuana, to be honest. In fact, I might even argue that
it doesn't make. I know it's the logic. Yeah. Listen, here's how it makes no sense. The prohibition of marijuana is based on a lie. So everything after that is going to be weird and not able to be explained, and that would be one of those. Okay. All right. Let's let David on. David wants to try to pin you down, I think, on your interpretation. Let's see what he's got to say. David, go ahead. I'm unmuting you. You got to behave, though, okay?
The Planet Green Trees Show.
Join the Michigan Medical Marijuana Association today, michiganmedicalmarijuana.org. The MMMA is focused on the well-being and safety of medical marijuana patients. The MMMA site provides the most comprehensive and up-to-date news on legal issues, politics, research, cultivation, as well as the various strange products and methods of cannabis use. Come join the discussion with the most knowledgeable and passionate advocates in Michigan today. michiganmedicalmarijuana.org.
Before you plead, call me Attorney Michael Komorn.
historical farm crop in American agriculture has returned after having been classified as a controlled substance and illegal. On December 20th, 2018, the President signed the Farm Bill, also known as the Agriculture Improvement Act of 2018, into law. The signing of the act was great news for the hemp industry, which amended the definition of marijuana in the Federal Controlled Substances Act. Hemp is now defined as the plant, Cannabis sativa L, and any part of the plant, growing or not, with less than 0.3% THC concentration on a dry basis. The plant itself is no longer a controlled substance. Hemp is one of the most versatile plants on earth. From clothing, fiber, paper, building materials, hempcrete, biofuels, CBD, and medical uses, it has been a part of America's industry for over 200 years. Even the United States Constitution was drafted on hemp paper. The time is now. If you're thinking of getting into farming or processing of hemp, contact our global experts, legal, and consultation teams to make sure that you're on the right road when you venture into the new hemp industrial revolution. Michigan Hemp Industries has been a leader and advocate for the return of the hemp industry. So come be a part of the new revolution in agriculture in Michigan.